China military flybys near Taiwan plunge after U.S.-Japan statement.
Here's a summary of the article.
Taipei. Chinese military activity in Taiwan's air defense identification zone has dropped sharply since the U.S. and Japanese leaders called for peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait during their April 16 summit, data compiled by Nikkei shows. Beijing appears to be backing off from aggressive moves that would antagonize Washington over the hot-button issue after the U.S. and Japan made their first statement naming Taiwan in decades. China had sent military jets into Taiwan's air defense identification zone on 75 days between January 1 and April 16, for a rate of about 70% or roughly 5 days weekly. Taiwan experienced large-scale incursions of 10 or more Chinese jets on 9 of those days, 6 of which happened within 3 weeks of the U.S.-Japan statement. China tends to increase flybys around Taiwan whenever Washington signals greater involvement with the island. Beijing's activities near Taiwan diminished after the summit, both in scale and frequency. China wants to avoid antagonizing the U.S. over Taiwan, while demonstrating Beijing's military might to those at home ahead of the Communist Party centennial, Su said, noting the recent uptick in provocations against Southeast Asian nations.
This post received a score of 17,000, with an upvote ratio of 94%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
The FCK-1 looks like the tail of an F-16 and the nose of an F-18. The old "copy my homework, but make it look like your own."
I thought FCK was a joke lol.
Whoever named it knew what they were doing.
The flying FCK. Recruiting poster, the FCK. All we are missing is you.
Marketing genius right here, hire this man.
They can't afford to put their Argentina sea pillaging operation at risk. Strategically, it makes sense to exhaust the resource you will have more difficulty reaching later on first.
Argentina needs to sink a few boats. Stand up before it's too late.
With all those tracker turned off, they wouldn't even be able to prove they were sunk without outing themselves.
Escort these fucks to port to unload, or sink as thieves, pirates.
That's exactly what they are.
I think the UN is trying to quietly include this kind of behavior as piracy under UNCLOS.
That's cool and all, but I have a feeling it wouldn't mean much other than words. They'd sit on their hands and do nothing like almost every other issue. There are several countries out there that wouldn't mind exercising their naval equipment without any, or too much, political repercussions.
Taiwan's indigenous fighter, FCK-1. I appreciate that.
The Taiwan indigenous fighter model number was derived from two operational phrases common to the Taiwanese military: Taiwan, number 1, and FCKU.
Every time China comes up, I like to make sure Tiananmen is brought up. Little known fact, China very nearly lost control of their own military at Tiananmen Square. Which was probably why they came down so very hard. The troops originally deployed did not follow orders to quell the protests. Which is why the original troops sent in were also slaughtered by the knuckle-draggers they brought in from a far region, under the command of someone who was politically trusted to see it through. Was detailed in the UK diplomatic cable describing what happened. Also here.
Of all the Reddit counter-proselytizing on China, and I never knew the military wasn't carrying out orders. Interesting and perspective-changing.
Greater than I never knew the military wasn't carrying out orders. One interview with a survivor noted that they knew they were in trouble when they saw new soldiers coming in with dirty boots and far more hardened looks. The local soldiers were hanging out with the protesters and largely refusing to enforce the Politburo's orders.
Do you know where I could find this interview?
You can find the original cable that describes the whole process IIRC.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.